Então, primeiro, sejam bem-vindos.
So, first of all, welcome, everyone. And the competitive differential aspect of the banks is directly connected to technological innovation and the customer's experience. And cloud has been very important for disruption and everything that is happening in the banking sector. Everybody can see that. And as the banks have to adopt several cloud platforms to address different business needs, the lack of fluid integration becomes a huge challenge, and that's where supercloud comes in, and this is what we're going to talk about, just so you know the subject we're going to talk about. And when we look at the cloud, the supercloud provides time and tools for the team so they can concentrate on what's important, creating and adjusting digital products, and in this hyper-connected world, which is increasingly hyper-connected. We have technology that connects people instantaneously and broadly. Hyperconnectivity impacts the daily routine of banks, the way they interact with the customers, and also internal management of processes. With supercloud and hyperconnectivity, the idea is for them to help and challenge the banks to guarantee interoperability, performance, and safety. And when we talk about quantum computing as well, that's what we're going to debate. So to talk about all this, I'd like to call Elisa Kobayashi, who is the head of customer engineering for financial services in Google Cloud Brazil, Luiz Zucas, who is the commercial manager in cloud for the Agora Distribuidora, Mônica Sasso, Global Finance Services Lead from Red Hat, and Wilson Garcia, the General Technology Managers from Banco do Brasil.
Está formado o grupo.
And this is our group, and we're going to start now. So thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. So Mônica is going to speak in English, and we're going to understand everything very well because we have translation helping us, right?
E eu queria começar.
And I would like to start by asking the following. When we look at the infrastructure of the financial sector, trends like multi-cloud and hyperconnectivity, this is present, increasingly present. And in this scenario, how important is it to adopt a super cloud architecture considering the different business models? Luiz, would you like to start? Okay, let's go. So, hi. For us to start talking about the super cloud, it's very important to talk a little bit about the evolution, because this is a current topic. And before we used to talk about the different environments, then we evolved to the cloud, and these cloud became more sophisticated. We started talking more about the distributed operations, multi-cloud environments, and hybrid cloud environments. And today we talk a lot about supercloud. So when we talk about this topic, we're talking about this whole issue of the operation of distributed cloud with a whole layer of integration and systems and observability. And behind that, we're governing this kind of infrastructure. So that's the first important point. It's important for us to be on the same page about this. And then, moving forward in this topic, I understand that the great advantage of the supercloud for banks, one of the great things that we're going to do with this kind of architecture is add the observability, so unified observability and management. There's a layer for that, and we're going to be able to use that based on the customer's decision, so where he would like to direct the load. Great. So Mônica, can you tell us a little bit about your perspective of supercloud in this market?
Sure. I love how you described, Luis, the evolution, because I think that's the most important thing. And this supercloud or open hybrid cloud adoption is of course a trend that we at Red Hat see across the financial services and insurance industry around the world. And with all of our customers, they want to use the open hybrid cloud to remain competitive so they can have access to the best technology to innovate so that we can all have better products as consumers, to reduce operating costs, of course, which they can realize, as you said, Luis, when you have that single pane of glass, the easier operation, and to modernize legacy technology, as well as increase resilience, and finally, to help them scale at peak times, for example, at Christmas time or tax season, if they need extra capacity. So these are some of the advantages that we're seeing our customers realize as they adopt a super cloud or the open hybrid cloud, as you call it. But of course this means, and you alluded to it, it's great actually, you talked about distributed technology. And when you adopt distributed technology, you have to find that balance between consistency and flexibility. So you've got lots of choice out there, but you need to find that layer of consistency across everything so that you can achieve all of the benefits of this super cloud. And you can get that consistency by having a common platform that operates on any hardware, like you said, or any location that you or any other bank or any company wants to operate on, or any hardware or any location, or even any silicon architecture. And that means CPU, GPU, I have to find the letters, there's so many of them, or even quantum, QPUs. I had to learn that word recently, say that 5 times fast. So, you need to have a common platform that operates over any silicon architecture and any hardware so that you can really get those advantages of the super cloud and distributed technology.
Sensacional.
Great. Wilson, can you bring your perspective over? Hi, Sylvia. Thank you for the question. So I'm going to start by saying that it's a great pleasure to be part of this panel with my peers here. And thank you to everyone who is hearing us here. So Banco do Brasil, I'm going to give you the perspective of Banco do Brasil. When we talk about the super cloud, always when we discuss the technological architecture internally, first of all, we try to bring the customer's perspective, the customer's needs. And when we see a reality, this world is hyper-connected for them. So they're connected to different platforms, different ecosystems, and always trying to find the best offer or the best value out of each of these platforms. And for us as a bank, for us to be able to offer the best for this customer and be present at these moments in his life, we also need to be in a hyper-connected world. So I'm going to give you 2 examples of business models that bring the reality of our cloud. So the first one is for the bank as a platform, where we connect the customer in our channel to other services. So we have a case today which is Shopping BB, and through the Banco do Brasil app, the customer has an experience, an e-commerce experience, where he can, hire and buy several products, cosmetics, electronic products, and the whole journey from the choice until the payment. And for us to be able to deliver this experience, we also need to be connected to e-commerce platforms, logistics solutions for payment that are part of the bank. So we need a series of connections that bring this hyper-connectivity, and that's when we talk about the super cloud. Another business model is the one of bank as a service. It's also somewhere Banco do Brasil works in. We expose our services in third-party platforms, following the same logic, being where the customer is. And today we have a solution from Banco do Brasil that we call Developer Portal, and we have several APIs with different capacities for financial services. The main ones are for payment, and we connect with the checkout in marketplaces and RBs, and providing a banking experience for the customer, and without him having to leave his journey or his experience wherever he is. So these are 2 business models. You were talking about business models, Sylvia. So we really need to have this to deliver to the customers, this cloud structure. And when we look inside Banco do Brasil as an incumbent, we have a huge diversity of technologies, public clouds, and also going through private clouds or the premises and legacies, talking with software, low code, no code. So inside, we also need a very strong super cloud strategy to be able to transform these solutions and capacities for banking solutions to be able to deliver this ecosystem where the customer is. So to talk about super cloud in Banco do Brasil, this is not a subject that is inside only technology. It is strategic, and it involves the whole Bank of Brazil. That's great. It's great that you said that, because that's it. The more complex the business is, the more complex the technology needs to be able to deal with it in a simple manner, right? And so, Elisa, tell us your vision. Thank you, Silvia.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
De verdade, eu tô super feliz da gente.
I'm very happy that we're discussing this topic with everyone. We were talking on the backstage, and I've been working with technology for over 20 years, and I remember the time when I had to carry servers to connect to cables because the world was 100% on-premise, and I needed to make infrastructure available for RT implementation, and we could not launch the project if we didn't have the hardware ready or the architecture ready. So in the past few years, we came from this 100% on-premise environment, and now we're taking things to cloud. We've been working with cloud. And nowadays, we're talking about multi-cloud. We're using not only one cloud, but more than one cloud. And today, we're here talking about supercloud, which is an abstraction layer on top of everything we had before. We have evolved a lot, right, in the past few years, and it's really nice to be part of this evolution of this process. And I'm sure that there's a lot more to come. Monica mentioned Quentin, and we'll have this revolution. This will change everything in the cloud. But going back to supercloud, well, I've worked with and for many clients in the sector, and we see that multi-cloud is a reality already in most of the companies in financial institutions we work with. And multi-cloud is very interesting because we're able to work on what is most interesting for our business in the cloud, but it also poses some challenges. How can you manage 3 or 4 different clouds? I need to have skilled professionals for that. I need to think about how I should manage each of them. I need to develop them specifically, each of them specifically. So multi-cloud brought some challenges for us to operate these clouds. And because of that, we've been thinking about this new concept that is called supercloud. And this concept has been dominating the market in the past few years. Now we're thinking about how can we apply security in all of these spaces, or developers. I work with development. Imagine developers that need to come up with a code to improve client experience, that need to talk about new functionalities. They need to know, well, if I'm working with Cloud A, I should do this. Cloud B, I should do this. So there is an abstraction layer that facilitates the life of this developer so that they can focus on what they really need, which is to address issues, business issues, and to improve customer experience. This is the first advantage that I see. It's how easy and flexible our work becomes in managing these clouds. And there's also the cost efficiency, because we need to use our resources very well and carefully. This is part of the agenda of all businesses.
Se nesse momento,
So if in this moment, this cloud offers me the best cost benefit, so I'll take advantage of this one. Why should I stick to just one supplier? Multi-cloud also gives us flexibility, agility, and flexibility as well. Now you have, and also you have some power of bargain as well. You do not have to stick to one supplier or cloud supplier only. This is another point that is very important when we talk about supercloud. I think that's it. That's what I had for you. Great. You mentioned very interesting things. So let's go to the next step. Everything is fine. So, but we have challenges, right? Superman said, the bigger the problem, the more responsibilities you have. So this is important. This is tempting, but the deployment, implementation is challenging. So I would like you to share the challenges you have faced. Monica, the stage is yours. You brought 3 different processors. Can you tell us about the how difficult it is to work with them?
Sure, thank you. And I should also say thank you for being patient with me speaking English. I've seen these challenges quite a lot in anybody, not just in financial services firms, but with lots of our big customers, and I apologize for having my back to you. I feel very rude. But the first one is not knowing what you don't know. So this is possibly because many firms still operate in silos, and in banks in particular, it's maybe product line or line of business, or even geography. And because you have that, it becomes very, very important to identify your minimum viable bank. We all know the phrase minimum viable product, but actually it's about the minimum viable bank. So what systems do you need to keep your business up and running, the minimum that you need? It might be payments, it might be mortgage, whatever it is, understand your minimum viable bank so that you can know what you don't know. You can identify all the third and the fourth parties that help you support your minimum viable bank. The second challenge that I see is people getting religious about technology. And in some cultures and countries, I can say that, I feel comfortable saying that in Brazil. But if you lock yourself into a brand or a technology just because of loyalty, you might not be getting the right service that you need for yourself or for your customers. For example, I have a customer who hates the mainframe. I met with them years ago, and they said, I hate this thing, I can't wait to take it and put it in the parking lot and take a baseball bat to it and then set it on fire. And I just kind of looked at him and I thought, okay, well, it's not about hating or loving something. It's about having the right tool for the right job at the right time. And then, as Elisa was saying, having that common abstraction layer so that you can execute each of those, execute the application, your minimum viable bank, for example, over the right tool, the right time, and the right location to optimize costs. So for me, it's not about a brand, it's about having a choice. It's about having flexibility. And that's what you don't have if you get too religious about technology. And the third one, I think, is more of a reality than a challenge, and that's about speed and expectations about speed. We all kind of expect our banks to operate as fast as maybe Netflix or other tech companies. And the reality is they cannot. You too cannot, right? Where I used to work at Deutsche Bank, we could not, because we have a responsibility not only to keep our customer and our clients' money safe, but to keep the economy up and running. And for example, I've got two interesting stories. In the UK, where I live in London, we have a law called the senior managers regime. And if you're a senior manager, so probably some of us in this room would classify under some of the European countries' senior managers regime. If you're a senior manager, you are guilty until proven innocent. So if anything goes wrong, you're in trouble first, and then you have to prove that you didn't do anything wrong. So that really brings the responsibility and accountability back to decision makers. And I'd just like to kind of articulate, explain this responsibility. In the 1970s in Ireland, most of the banks went on strike. 1970 was not very long ago, maybe, well, for me it was not very long ago. For some of us it was, but for many of us it was not. So they went on strike. That means the banks were closed. But the economy did not collapse. And the reason why the economy did not collapse was because at that time, pubs, God bless Guinness, were the center of communities and cultures. So every pub landlord or pub owner would know that I, Monica, have a job. So if I come in and I buy Guinness or I buy dinner or whatever, I will eventually be able to pay my bill. And then also, it meant that if other people knew that if I didn't have a job, they would help me pay my bills so that I would be able to feed my children. So as that sense of that responsibility shifted to the pubs and to the community, and that's why, the economy was kept alive. That's the responsibility that banks have, and that's why moving super fast and breaking things is probably not realistic, and that is a challenge and a reality that we see, and that I'm constantly telling my colleagues, hey, listen, our banks, our customers really can't move fast and break things, because do you want them to move fast and break things with your pension? No.
Muito bom. Wilson, você falou.
Great. Wilson, can you tell us about your challenge? I would like to understand what kind of challenges you have in keeping your business up and running. Well, we have many challenges, but the good news is that we also have many opportunities. The first challenge I see is related to organizational culture. When we talk about projects in supercloud, different from what Elisa mentioned, with supercloud, we have a lot of collaboration, integration with other partners. So we need to redesign the way we work and we deliver solutions to our clients. The second challenge is security. This is always present because in the supercloud world, there are many integrations with partners, sometimes using external channels. And this is different from the past. In the past, we had on-premise locations, on-premise servers. And this way, security increases, right? But with this strategy, we have access to many solutions for security. They have evolved a lot, and I see that we're getting to a point that that trade-off between experience and security won't exist anymore. We'll be able to offer a lot with security. We see this happening already. SuperCloud has many offers from many suppliers, and it allows us. The second challenge is latency and experience. We need to continue delivering experience. Like I said, we have many connections with partners, which involve different geographies, different locations, and this is a challenge because our technological infrastructure is very robust. When we talk about 100% digital products, I like to say that many of the disciplines that were the responsibility of a chief operating officer in the past, now they are part of the software engineering. This is the architecture that will allow us to scale in the number of clients. And the last challenge here is our legacy, our digital assets, because they allow us to expose data in other environments. So they need to be ready to be integrated in this hyper-connected world. There's a lot AI helping us in this sense, but this is still one of the major challenges that I see. Great. We'll go back to what you have just said. Luis, can you talk about your challenges a little bit? Sure. Well, I agree with you both. This is what we have been seeing as challenges in SuperCloud, and I would like to add another point. Dividing it into the external and internal side. In terms of internal side is how we take care of our professionals. We need to train them to provide all the tools that they need to work. Both the banking team and also the client team, they need to be ready for that and to have all the tools that they need in terms of cloud. We need to be careful about these internal tools that we need. And the second is, how do you see all of that? So this is the external side. How do you take care of cost, security, open doors, closed doors? How do you see the infrastructure itself? We should be careful about this, both sides. This is, I think it's the major challenge that we have and the most risk that is imposed to us. We need to make sure that we see and have control over everything we we're using because it's a wide world, many challenges, tools, and we need to know how to manage this well. Nice. Elisa, you're always the last one I ask you, as to say, right? Oh, it's great because I get to hear what they say first and then add something else. I agree with them all. Well, super cloud is a strategy, and it's not an easy task. What we want to do with supercloud is actually to facilitate things, to flexibilize things, but it's not easy to show this to our employees. It involves a shift in our culture, and we should be careful about that. It's not about deploying a new technology only. We need to take people into consideration, think about the processes that will be needed in order for this to work. We need sponsors to understand the benefits that we'll reap in the future. But for us to get to that moment when we will reap the benefits, we need to go through this adoption moment. And we've been talking a lot about that.
A gente encontra e cada vez
Well, we see a lot of technology in the world. The world has been evolving a lot. Google Cloud has always had in its mission and its strategy to work with open solutions, flexible solutions that work in a multi-cloud infrastructure, but it's important for us to keep in mind that technology is a way of doing things. It's not the end. We need to be careful about our people, about our processes. We need to readjust, to pivot, to create new areas, new roles, new professionals that will be responsible for this new platform and this new technology, and that will be able to make this available to other employees of the company. We need to think about that, the people. So my suggestion here is that we need to have the best partners. We need to have a specialized consulting firms that helps us in this adoption process so that we can achieve our goals, the goals we have for multi-cloud. Otherwise, we'll get stuck in the way. Yeah, it's always important to have this external view, right? We talked about mainframe, about legacy systems, but legacy is here. We cannot deny it. Legacy is there. So Wilson and Luis, can you please talk a little bit about how to deal with these legacy systems when we're looking into the future and future opportunities? Okay, I'll get started because I created this trouble actually. I've been working since the 1990. We developed the best architecture, but this reality was not hyper-connected. And now I'm working on modernizing what I created in the past. Modernization challenges are huge. Most of the legacy, the systems that we have, especially in incumbents and large banks, these solutions were developed for us to communicate internally, mostly internally. Self-service ATMs, they were built based on proprietary protocols and internal communication with these channels. They had contact with the client. Now that our clients are hyper-connected, we need our credit, PICs, and investment capabilities to be ready to connect in other ecosystems. When my client contracts any kind of solution on our app, for example, they will not interrupt their journey to go into the banking environment. Let's say, even if it's a virtual self-service, they want to carry out their journey in just one environment. And for us to be there, Well, my credit investment solutions, they need to be ready to talk, to interact with this universe.
So to be able to communicate with this world. And there's a situation when we talk about supercloud, one of the strategies, the evolution of software, is to have to use this, the he-host, that's what we call it, in the cloud. But in the cloud, it doesn't solve anything, because if I have a monolith in the mainframe, in the cloud, they're not able to communicate with another solution. So this challenge, a modernization challenge, goes through some rewriting my apps and a new architecture with microservices, and my banking and financial capacities are what we call white label, so that they are ready to talk to different ecosystems and other platforms. And in this journey in Banco do Brasil, we have already started using artificial intelligence because it's a huge challenge. I heard from another speaker this morning, if there was a legacy, the world wouldn't be created in 7 days, right? So we have a lot of legacy, and we, have modernization as well. So this is also something that is discussed inside the bank, and it's not restricted to technology. It is strategic. It demands a lot of courage to redefine our technological basis, to prepare the bank for this future, for the present and the future, because it's becoming closer every day. And Luis, what about your legacy in your case? That's great, Wilson. And following the same line that you followed, you were the creator of the legacy at a certain point. I think it's a lot of fun to talk about this, because a legacy is always going to exist, because we're going to build with the best architecture that exists in the moment. So the best architecture from the 90s, technology is going to evolve and transform, and in the future that's going to be the legacy as well. So when we talk about this kind of integration, the point that I find most relevant is for us to abstract the side of technology and look at processes and the management of projects, and trying to make a real assessment about this. And this is what we can use, so what we can actually not use and retire in the legacy. So a good project management is the first thing. First thing, we have to discover what we're going to use. The second relevant point is have somebody that you trust, a partner that you trust. So in these challenges about integration with the legacy, we have to bring an external consulting company. Many times we have to bring an external perspective, not only labor, but the perspective of somebody who doesn't use this on a daily basis, and they can observe this neutrally, right, with a neutral methodology. So I think that's also very relevant. And the third point, which is crucial, the key point, is the issue of knowing how to phase this kind of transformation. So taking care of the process, having a good project management, having a partner that you trust that knows about the market methodologies and the environment, and being able to do it phasing that is adequate to the board, the bank board, the technology area, and the technology that we have available, and the cost that we're going to have, and according to our budget that is available for all this. That ends up being the crucial point for us to do this kind of integration and this kind of transformation of legacy to a modern architecture like supercloud. So, Silvia, can I just add on to that? Luis, you made an excellent point about the legacy, and it's what Monica said as well. We have to run the business, right? The customer, we need to deliver the solutions for the customers, what they need today. And we have this perspective, and legacy is actually what brought the bank to this point. And it's been running very well for 30 years. And the issue is to provide agility. That's what we need. That is scalable, because this new hyperconnected world is bringing this, and we need to evolve with this architecture. But definitely the legacy is what brought us here, and that's what's running now. And the customer wants to know about the experience and not the supercloud, right? At the end of the day, that's what they want.
Well, of course. Vocês têm absoluta razão.
So you're absolutely right. You know, we have to run things. The customer has to have the best experience. And I imagine that the time of the legacy, and I agree with you fully. So what brought us here is never going to take us forward. We're always going to have to move and jump around a little bit more. But looking at the perspective of the trusted partner. So Elisa and Monica, you are the side of the trusted partner, right? I think. And in this case, when we think about the supercloud in banks especially, what are the challenges that you have? What are the risks? And how, I wanted to know your perspective as well about legacy. So how can we overcome all of these issues? I'm going to let you start, Elisa. You see, you're not going to be last this time. Thank you, Silvia. So as we were saying, supercloud is an evolution that has been coming over time, and probably later on we're going to find other processes like this. And I think I've already said this before. I said this before. So we have several challenges because it's not an easy process, and the adoption strategy that we have to take care of to implement this has to be well thought out. Otherwise, everything that we're going to try and get as a benefit in supercloud can become the other side of it. So, and thinking about the challenges and the risks that we see, especially in the banking sector and the financial sector, you know, that is highly regulated, and there's a lot of accountability that we have to take care of. So the first thing that I think about is security. And we cannot, you know, because we're using multiple clouds or a hybrid environment that is connected, we cannot allow space that is not secure, that is not being covered. And this complexity can increase because as you bring new elements in there, you have to be even more careful so you don't allow these security issues to find gaps, because you can have 99% of your environment secure. If 1% is not covered, that's where you're going to have problems. And we always have to run after this. And I think this is an important point, because as we bring more elements into the architecture, of course, we're going to bring greater complexity to administrate, and especially thinking on the aspect of security and compliance. So I think that tools and products that help us to have a control tower that is centralized and where we're able to have visibility of everything that's happening, regardless of the cloud it's going on in and the premises. So this is a basic point for us to mitigate this risk. It's for us to really have the centralized control tower where we can evaluate security. And the other side of this, when we also think about supercloud and the risk that this can bring, is the issue of cost. So we really want to work on multiple clouds. We want to work with supercloud to be able to reap the benefits of cost optimization. But if we're not careful, if we don't analyze it carefully, and if we don't have a FinOps process from the first day that we're working with this model, in this architecture, this can become a nightmare, a financial nightmare. So hidden costs that can come up and we're not seeing them. So for example, the cost of data traffic between the clouds, or the change in price policies, because each one has a different pricing model, right? And how can we follow this up and understand this in the best way? And hidden processes that we're not seeing. And suddenly there's some inefficiency in the start that is masked by this layer that is abstract. So from the first day, we need to be very careful about cost. And the best way of doing this is to really have a FinOps area that is prepared for this and is very active. Because if we think that the supercloud is going to bring us reports, it's going to bring information and recommendations, all right, but if nobody's watching, if nobody's actively observing this, whatever we're trying to get as a benefit in the architecture, we're not going to be able to do, maybe. That could be our biggest problem.
É aquela história, né? Cuidado.
Right, and it's be careful what you want because you may get it, right? Monica, what is your perspective?
I come at this maybe from a different way. So when I joined Red Hat 5 years ago, I joined from the business side of a bank. So I really wanted to learn about tech. So I figured how else to learn about tech is go to a tech company. And we have our own framework about how we help our customers adopt the super cloud. And actually it's based on failure, which I think we all know is the best way to learn. Whether you like it or not, that's the best way to learn, from walking as a little baby to some of the things we're dealing with today as a society. So there's sort of three risks that we have observed with in failing with our customers, and then subsequently, obviously, succeeding a lot, hopefully, touch wood. The first one is not getting the basics right. And for an example, one of the things that we've seen a lot with our customers is automation, not automating the most boring activities, be that maybe upgrading your operating system. So it's connecting your infrastructure, it's connecting all across the silos in your bank and using automation to do that. If you don't have the basics right, it's like building a house. You can't adopt the most fun and cool and sexy technologies if you don't have the basics right. And I think some of that is legacy, maybe legacy processes, legacy ways of working. All of that comes into play because listening to you two, it reminded me that actually, to be fair, none of this is about technology. It's about how we work together and how we use tools. But that's probably a conversation for a beer later. The second risk that we see is, and it kind of goes back to how we open the conversation, it's not knowing who's in your trusted software supply chain. So it's not knowing your fourth and your fifth parties. It's very easy to say, oh my gosh, hello, there's a drone. It's very easy to say, oh, we're going to use this third party to help us, a partner like Red Hat. But if you as a bank or you as a customer don't know who my third parties are or your fourth parties, you don't know where there's another point of failure. So I can give you an example. We have a customer in the UK. They were using the public cloud to run their payment system. And it was all after open banking came out in Europe about 6 or 7 years ago. And there was this CTO did not know they were using a certain DNS service. And guess what? There was a failure in the DNS service. And guess what? It happened over Christmas in the month of December, the second week of December. And for an entire weekend, for 2.5 days, nobody could make a payment in that bank. Imagine not getting your paychecks to be able to buy Christmas presents. So the CTO tells us the story. And he says, I went to the board, and the board says, why did this happen? And the CTO said, I don't know. And that just highlighted to me the importance of knowing who your fourth and your fifth parties are, so that you can be able to understand your own resilience and you can continue to run your minimum viable bank and understand your minimum viable bank. And it's not just your fourth and your fifth parties, it's also, your software bills of material and even your delivery partners. You talked about project management, Luis. That's a huge thing. Going back to that regime in the UK and Ireland where you have the senior managers regime where guilty until proven innocent, you're personally liable. A CIO at a bank, a small bank, got fined £80,000. I don't know what that is in real, but that's a lot of reals.
A lot.
Yeah, exactly, a lot of reals. Personally, so after tax, because they chose a partner that could not deliver the project. So there's so many different elements of your fourth and your fifth parties in your supply chain, and actually, as we move fast and adopt the super cloud, it's more complicated. So you have to be very clear on who is in your own value chain. And I think the third one, we've all probably talked about it, and I'm going to say it again, and I'll probably say it 2 more times. It's forgetting about the people and the processes. It's not just about tech. We all use the tools. If you don't bring them on the journey, if you don't educate people, if you don't change the processes, as Elisa was talking about, then you can't adopt the best technology. You're not going to get the best out of the technology that you're paying for. And that's the most important thing, is you want to be able to get the best out of your investments and the best out of your people.
Sensational. Muito bom. Eu tenho medo.
Sensacional. Great. That was great. I'm afraid of this law of, the accountability and the management. Yeah, it's a great thing. So I would now like to ask you a question, because of course there is anxiety, right, of this period we're in, which is called AI. And how does SuperCloud and the AI how are they connected in terms of supercloud? So does supercloud prepare the infrastructure better to support AI? Does it remove the benefits from AI? And Luiz, I'd like to ask you to start. So,
Porque no fim tá tudo conectado, né?
and then everything's connected, right, Luiz? Can you talk about that? Okay, so I understand that AI is connected to supercloud, which is the quantity of processing that is necessary. So we have a huge need for computing power, and then we go back to what Monica was saying about the GPUs and quantum and CTUs and this whole world of data processing that we have. And the part of costs is involved there. So we have a huge cost that is connected to the processing, and we're going to have to direct to, which cloud, to which provider, to the one that can support this kind of operation. So I see that the first relationship between AI and the supercloud model is cost management, because we're going to have a very high cost, and all the companies are adapting and trying to understand how they're going to deal with this. And the second point is to understand the performance, the experience, and the tools that have been approved and where they adapt better. So I would think about these two pathways: cost, which is extremely important, and performance stroke experience. Wilson? Anything else you want to add in this pie chart? Yes. I see AI. And even before the supercloud, and when there is a good strategy, and AI nowadays helps me to evolve to a strategy, and we have some examples of how we're using artificial intelligence, generative AI to modernize our apps, and to be able to get to a supercloud strategy. And if you run a supercloud strategy, I have some benefits. One that we see that is very strong, which is access. So there is software, there's a lot of artificial intelligence in it, and you have examples from the security solutions. But today, basically, the softwares, the CRM, for example, there's a lot of artificial intelligence being used, of relationships with the customers, to provide the solutions for the customers, and also to help me scale up and run my models. So Luis said this very well. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, it's the use of a processing capacity and data, which is at an exponential level compared to other processing models. And in this sense, the supercloud strategy gives me the elasticity to be able to deliver this value. I would like to emphasize a point. Elisa, 3 questions ago, talked about the challenge of our technology professionals, knowing about different clouds and having a high cognitive load to be able to provide value to our customers. That's basically the question that you were talking about in the beginning. In Banco do Brasil, we have a technological platform nowadays that moves together with the supercloud. And our objective is to take away the complexity, and we contact and provide different offers, and the one that provides better value, as you know, Monica, and also filling in a certain layer so that our data scientists can be agile in providing value to the customer. And an example that we have today that is in our AI analytics platform, internally we call it Genera Baby, because we built an interface where you can integrate different LLM and generative AI solutions. And when we deliver to the technology professional, we already make a choice of the one that adapts best to the business context. And we orchestrate it so that we can manage costs and mitigate lock-in risks. And if I'm able to, for example, include a new supplier in my solution, so my data engineer won't even have to know, because there's going to be an abstraction layer that is in our technological platform. And another point when we talk about AI and the supercloud strategy, in this hyperconnected world, we have more points of connection and contact with the customer. And in the same way, We also have points to collect data with, and we have used this data a lot to be able to evolve in terms of the customer's experience. We have cases of data collection for funnels about customer relationships with our products, and we have used this data to evolve in the customer experience. And these are some examples, and in summary, SuperCloud potentializes AI, and as a consequence, it potentializes business, and this is exactly what FEBRABAN Tech is talking about here, right? Great. Elisa? I think we are working with artificial intelligence, right? This is the era of generative AI. But it's nice because we have said this a lot. AI for us is an enhanced individual.
Because there is a concern about what will happen with our professions due to AI, but we're saying that SuperCloud is an evolution of architecture. AI is also an evolution, and we will benefit a lot from it. Everyone has mentioned this, but for us to have AI, we need a lot of data and a lot of processing power. The more we want to get from AI, the more we need that. When we talk about SuperCloud, it's important to know that SuperCloud is not related to infrastructure only, to virtual machines, for example. It is connected to data as well, to integration as well. And so the advantage of working with SuperCloud is the same as working with the AI model. We have a lot of data, structured, unstructured data, a lot of data. But this data is spread out many times in silos, and they're not connected. For us to be able to take advantage from them, and especially to feed our AI model and to train and operate our AI model, we need to first have consolidated data. And that's when SuperCloud comes into play, because it helps us with that consolidation. Luis said very well about infrastructure, how important it is. When we talk about computing power, we're talking about a very heavy load that generates a lot of costs. Nowadays, we talk about GPUs. Everyone is looking for that, but this resource is not available for everyone. It's not hard to get. It's not easy to get that. Everyone is working with AI, developing or using AIs. GPUs is a very difficult resource to have nowadays, and we should be careful about that. SuperCloud allows us to choose more easily and to flexibilize where our overload will be located. And this has to do with availability of resources as well. Where is that resource available for me to get the scale that I need for my AI model, to be able to operate it, to infer? This is also important, and it's an advantage in our SuperCloud. And security, once again, security, of course. Security is always latent and present in our conversations, because when we talk about AI, our guardrails, we need to be careful to avoid hallucinations, because these hallucinations would lead to things that we don't want. It's important to have a concentrated infrastructure. We need to take care of this AI regardless of where we are operating, actually, the locations. Monica?
Just quickly, I'm going to add on to what you were saying, Wilson. I think, add one thing on, you were talking about this kind of abstraction layer, this almost platform where your developers or your data scientists don't know and don't care where their applications are deployed. And when you have that single CI/CD pipeline, you can then make the choices about where you run your workloads and minimize electricity. And I think this is a conversation I'm having a lot with customers around FinOps as well, is how can we minimize our CO2 output, our CO2 consumption, and our electricity costs. So if you have that platform, as you say, where, I mean, why does a data scientist care where their application is run? They shouldn't care, but you care if it's run on the cheapest location, because that will also reduce your electricity and your spend and keep your CFO happy. So I think, as you say, that's perfect, and there's also another advantage, which is less electricity.
Okay. Well, we have 4 minutes. Aliás, desculpa, tô falando inglês aqui, senhor.
Okay, we have 4 minutes. She was speaking English. She said it's Monica's fault. So we have 4 minutes to wrap up. So I would like to hear your final remarks. You mentioned many things here. It's clear that we're talking about complex environments to solve complex issues in an easy way.
Mas eu queria
But I would like to hear your final remarks for those who has not traced a supercloud strategy yet. What is your advice? What is the priority, let's say? Elisa, please get started.
Rapidamente, então,
Well, very briefly, my suggestion would be first to start thinking about why. Why do you need supercloud? What do you want to achieve? What are the expected benefits? Do you need agility, flexibility, removing lock-in? What do you need? This is important because when you define what you want or you need, your adoption strategy comes second. When we think about supercloud, we tend to talk a lot about infrastructure. It's naturally linked to it. But also think about the layer of data, think about integration as well. This is all part of supercloud as well. It's not the infrastructure only, it's the platform as a whole. It's a broader concept. And also be careful about costs. We talked a lot about that. Let me repeat something I said there. Work closely with FinOps so that you won't have any costs problems, because this could generate negative ROIC, and nobody wants that, right? Nobody wants that. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be part of this panel. Well, thank you for joining us today, and following her lines, I would raise 3 questions. Where are you? Where do you want to get? And how are you getting there? You need to know your environment to understand the benefits that you want to reap, like Wilson said. And clients want to have a positive experience. So where do you want to get? And how are you getting there? What are the tools, suppliers, partners, methodologies that you will use? So these are the 3 key questions that I think. Monica, your turn.
I have 5 Ps. 5 Ps, English Ps. I hope they will be Portuguese Ps. The first one is forget about the technology and start with the problem that you're trying to solve. What problem do you want to solve for your customers, for your shareholders, or for your employees? The second one is don't forget about the people and the processes. That's business processes, that's the culture change, all of those things. And the fourth one is, you use the word as well, Luis, it's professionals. It's how do we educate the next generation? How do we educate ourselves? How do we educate the next generation of technologists and employees in that professionalism space? And the last P is partners. You know, this is a team sport. This is not tennis, this is football. All of us together are going to help execute the supercloud and make sure that our economies are up and running and safe.
Excelentes dicas dos meus
Great recommendations from my colleagues here, and I'll say something along their lines. First, you need to understand your client. Where are they? What is the problem we want to solve? We're talking about a connected reality. Our clients are connected in different devices and apps. And for them to be able to deliver solutions for them, we need to have a super cloud, actually, strategy.
Mas eu entendo que hoje passa nessa
But I understand
porque é a forma
that super cloud
experiência e valor para o meu
will be required because we can be agile, sustainable, scalable when we use them. And this will lead to success in the future. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. This debate was very rich. It was great to hear from you all. Thank you.
Eu que agradeço o privilégio de ter.
Well, thank you. It was a privilege to be your mediator here.
Foi realmente um prazer ser
It was a pleasure. And Monica, thank you so much for saying this 5 Ps, because this 5 Ps work in Portuguese as well. Thank you.